From the Caravan of Hope, we got Nico, we got Jody, we got all the pups, and we have Ashling.
Hello.
We are in Little Rock right now, so on your end, everyone put in the chat where you're zooming in from. Like I said, we are in Little Rock, Arkansas. We got Kentucky. Hey, Edwin. Get you in here. Say hi. We got Colorado. We'll be there soon. Wichita, Kansas. We got Baltimore, Austin, Texas. Hey, Brian. Delaware, Philly. Awesome. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys just sort of an update on the Caravan of Hope thus far. It has overall been pretty amazing. We've helped a ton of folks. In our very first stop alone, we ended up helping and working with more people in Charlottesville in one stop than I did in the entire Caravan of Hope the first year that I did it. So after the very first stop, it was already wildly successful. We could have stopped then and done more than I did in the whole first year. It's like part awesome, part sad all at the same time. I was hoping, to need these services less and less, not more and more when I started the Caravan of Hope. Um, and then here in Little Rock, the laws have been changing quite rapidly. Even going into Oklahoma City the other day, I filmed the video for the ad. And on the very day that I filmed it, I had to pull it back because the laws were changing in Oklahoma City. And so breaking news, and thankfully I was able to get it out of Jenn's hands in time before we ran the ad because the laws about what we can do in Oklahoma City are now changed. Here, and hi everyone, say hi to Ashling. Here in Little Rock, things are equally difficult, and uh local chapters of national non-legal nonprofits reached out to the Caravan of Hope and actually asked that we do nothing. And we had some very tense conversations over the last few days where that, given the changing in the laws and them not wanting folks pro se without an attorney to file this paperwork and potentially get denied and have bad orders out there, that we'd be doing more harm than good. And they could have been nicer about it, I would say. And I kept saying, well, we're going to be there anyways. What could we do? What can we do? It's called the Caravan of Hope. There's no law in the name at the end of the day. You know what I mean? If you didn't know what the Caravan of Hope was, you wouldn't necessarily know that we're a law firm on wheels. But I, at the end of the day, would 100% listen. The whole point of the Caravan of Hope is to help the LGBTQ community and not hurt it. And things are so rapidly in flux that if folks filling out name change petitions, in here it's really the gender marker, and where the laws are in flux here in Arkansas. So the statute is vague, just so for folks that are interested. The statute here is vague. Some states have, you must have had sex reassignment, gender reassignment, however they define it in the statute, surgery, and a letter from a surgeon stating that you've had said surgery. For some folks, hysterectomy, top surgery, whatever it may mean, per the statute, to have had sex reassignment, gender reassignment surgery. Here, it doesn't say the word surgery, and so it is vague on what would qualify as that. And so some lawyers in some areas of Arkansas have been able, just with HRT, just taking hormones, to meet that requirement. And then other judges, someone here outside had a hysterectomy. The judge left the order open because the judge is not sure if that meets the requirement or not. So you have HRT, hysterectomy, two different judges, same state, two different outcomes. And so if we just went with gender, you need sex reassignment, you need letter from a surgeon, and then you can't get your gender marker changed. If that's what we told folks, because we couldn't argue, because once a Caravan of Hope leaves, we leave them. So I'm not here to argue for them in court, right? And so if every single person seeking a gender um, change on their ID needs to argue it based on their particular circumstance, then we shouldn't be doing gender marker changes for them. And then I believe that if I can't get a gender marker change for them, I also hesitate on doing a name change because I don't want, I don't want mismatched IDs. That's where the lack of safety comes in, is on a mismatched ID. So I'm not here to just say, I'll do name changes all day, but sorry, can't help you on the gender marker, and then leave someone. I actually talked a woman out of it in Tennessee. Two different people talked them out of a name change, just talking to them about the safety issues that they weren't thinking about because they were just so hoping for a name change, that when I actually talked it out with her and her wife and their kids present and all of the things as a family unit, like, actually this may not be safe for us. So but I want to bring Ashlyn into it. Yeah.
Yeah, as you were saying, things are changing so quickly that it's hard for those of us on the ground to know what to do or to expect. And that's why I'm here to make sure that I understand what's currently available for someone like myself, who has no understanding of how the law has changed right now. I do my best to keep up, but when things shifting so rapidly, and I am not a lawyer, I am not trained in any of these things. I don't understand the legalese. I am someone who needs these services to make sure that I know how to approach this in a safe way, like you were
In a
saying.
safely. Yep.
Like when we were informed this morning when we arrived that you weren't able to do name changes and gender markers, it was that moment of like disappointment, but also I'm shocked. I'm so surprised
Mm-hmm.
because of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Mm-hmm. Tell them what we are going to do.
So today, what we are able to do for me is to work with power of attorney and help me figure out some of my last will and statements, my
Yeah.
all of my medical problems in case the worst should happen. Those in my family who would go directly against my wishes would not be able to cause harm in that way. Those who can help and would be able to, and those who would not be able to. And that's what we're hoping to do today,
If you have,
or at least start that process.
yep, yep, we'll get it. We'll do that today, and tell them you have a little bit of both in your family.
Exactly. Like in my particular case, I have some blood family that are super supportive and they're wonderful, and I definitely want them to be on this on these papers, but and that wouldn't change. But there's someone else in the family who is directly, like I said, directly against everything that I am and stand for, and would directly contradict everything. And these are the two people that are my next of kin, and they are directly opposed to my views. One would be directly with, one directly opposed, and so
Getting the paperwork.
whew, trying to get some of that paperwork worked on would be so much weight off of my shoulders and just a burden to my soul. So I'm really thankful that you're here to help out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a perfect segue. I'm gonna hop off and do Ashling's estate planning and leave you, Jen, in the very, very capable hands of Jen and Alexander. Enjoy the interview. Enjoy everything that Alexander has to share. He's awesome. Um, and I don't just say that, I truly mean it. I've gotten to know him as a human over the last year, helping him with a whole bunch of different things. Um, and it's really been a pleasure, and just to see what he provides the LGBTQ community, even separate from our work together, just his calling and his work in the world. He has basically predominantly trans like therapeutic practice in Philadelphia and beyond. And so, similar to what the Caravan of Hope is doing legally, I feel like Alex brings to the therapeutic world as well. So, yeah, so enjoy their dialogue, their conversation, and I will catch all of you on March 24th. Um, and yeah, happy Tuesday. They're better than Tuesdays. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. Well, welcome, welcome. Um, so I think let's just get right into it. Welcome, Alexander. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about Arrive Therapy?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Alexander. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've been licensed for 20 years, living in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I've got two adopted kids and a fiance. And so, in many ways, just like a normal average life like everyone else, but I am trans. And the practice that I own that I started is called Arrive Therapy. And we are predominantly transgender diverse therapists as well as clients. So we have about 400 clients, and so it's a pretty big group of gender diverse and trans clients. We've also got other lesbian, gay, and family members of people who come here, that kind of thing, but it's largely trans folks. So it's a pretty unique practice. I love what we do and what we're able to offer, and many of our clients are in this sort of tri-state area, Pennsylvania, New York, Delaware, New Jersey, but we do see people in other states as well outside of this area. So I love what I do, and it's pretty awesome to be doing this at a time when it's really needed. When I started 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I thought it was needed then, and now I realize like it's just more and more needed to have safe places for people
Yeah.
to go. So, and we do mental health therapy, gender affirming care. We help people get ready for surgery. We help people with letters. We work with parents who are really concerned about their kids, bring their kids in, do a lot of educating with parents. I love working with parents. It's like one of my greatest joys is really to watch parents over a couple years really evolve and get to a place where they're allies and they're advocates, and they're really like champions for their kids, and that takes a lot of inner work for them to get there. So yeah, so that's Arrive Therapy.
I love that.
Thank
Can you talk a little bit about your personal journey and then how your personal journey and your professional path converged?
you.
Walk us through that intersection. Yeah.
Yeah, so when Angela's talking about the southern states, I'm actually from Tennessee. I was born in Tennessee. I lived in Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina, and so I know what it's like to live in the South where it can feel pretty oppressive. And even if you've got safe friends and maybe safe family members, it just feels like everywhere around you just doesn't feel safe. So I left the Southeast and came up here about 14 years ago. And I was already a therapist at the time. I've always worked with teenagers, worked with families. That was kind of like my main work was working with families. And so I never really planned to work with trans people, even LGBTQ people. I really was focused more on helping in teens and families. But what happened was when I started transitioning, about 8 years ago, people started coming to me and asking me to see, they would say like, oh, this person, I have this person, they just came out. Like, I don't know anything about this. I know, like, n I have no idea what to do. And will you help them? And will you see them? And at the time I thought like, well, I don't know either. Like, I didn't study this. I didn't study gender studies back in like when I got my degree in 2004. I don't even think the word like gay was mentioned, like, let alone like trans people. So I was like, well, I haven't studied this, but I was sort of immersed in my own community and learning on my own. So I started doing it. And it really has felt like the perfect intersection of all the work that I've done in my life, all the personal work that I've done, and then my professional experience. And part of that is the work with parents and the work with families. So when somebody comes in here and they're looking to explore their gender identity, there's really no way a person can transition without involving their families, their communities around them, right? To sort of outwardly transition, we really do have to involve the people around us. So the more I can support people's family members, even if the person who comes in for therapy is an adult, the more I can support their siblings and their parents, the smoother the whole thing goes for them. So I do really try to focus on that. And that's kind of like a little bit of the intersection of my personal experience and, really wanting people to have an experience that was better than mine, really, in many ways. Yeah.
Is it a lot of times, are you also offering like therapy sessions to family members? Like one-on-one, or is it like with your initial patient, or how does that work?
It really depends on the situation, but it's often I have found that it's best to do work with the family members first, and then bring them into a
That
session with
makes sense.
their, yeah, with their trans family members. Very, very early on in my work, I sort of learned that the hard way by bringing somebody and then bringing their spouse in, and it really impacted this like really like kind of I want to say vulnerable new person in their transition when their spouse came in and wasn't supportive. And if I had done some work with the spouse first, even the way the message would have been delivered, would have been different and better. So I've really learned to like separate the two and then bring back together. Yeah.
That's so interesting, and that absolutely makes sense. Like, do a little work on themselves first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And often, I mean, we've got like a support group for partners of trans people. We've got a support group for parents of trans kids of any age. So we do sort of have that focus on like, let's support everybody around the trans person. Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you started Arrive Therapy 7 years ago.
Mhm.
What are you seeing is the difference of like back then versus now? Like, are you seeing changes in who comes to see you and what they're looking for? All of that?
There is some changes to that. I would say, I mean, just in general, like 8 years ago, I felt like there was not nearly as much visibility for trans people. There was fewer people knew anything about trans people. It wasn't really even on their radar, and like there were fewer therapists who were competent at all to work with trans people. So I think that in some ways, there's more people now that are competent to do the work that we're doing. And I always say, like, it's great that Arrive Therapy is like largely trans clinicians working with trans clients because I think that there's a unique connection there, and there's a unique understanding of lived experience that is awesome. But I would say you don't have to be a trans person to be a competent therapist with a trans person. In fact, my therapist when I started transitioning wasn't trans. She's just like a straight cis woman, but she did an amazing job. So I had that experience myself. But I think that the difference in the first, I want to say, until 2025, beginning of 2025, we just saw like there was a lot of ramp up of people really coming out. There was like lots and lots of teens, young teens, even people in their 60s and early 70s, sort of going like, before the end of my life, I want to live really authentically. I want to like finish my life the way I really want to. And lots and everywhere in between there, like teens to older folks, a lot of people just coming out. And part of that was people being exposed to the information and realizing, like, oh, I've really felt this way my whole life. So there was a big kind of like ramp up with exposure. Now, we're seeing a lot less teens come in. We're seeing a lot less parents bring their teens in. And I'm not really sure why that is. I feel like there are more teens just delaying coming out, most likely, or maybe parents, their kids are coming out and the parents are not doing anything to help them, right? They're feeling maybe like, well, this isn't really a thing, or I'm not supposed to, support my kid. Like there's more so what do they say, like global support in our country for not supporting your trans teenager. Whereas like 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was a lot of like, okay, like get in there and support your kid and figure out how to help them. Um, and I always say to people, like, we are affirming of trans people and trans teenagers, but that is the same as we would affirm any other choice that a client was making, right? That just means we're here to be with them in the process and be with them and support them. And it doesn't mean that we're pushing them in any direction. It's not like, oh, we're affirming. So that means like, okay, you came in, you're question,
Right.
you're asking questions about your gender, and so we're pushing you in that direction. It would just be like anything else. Like if you come in and you are exploring a new career or, whatever, we're not going to tell you which direction to go. We're going to kind of help you explore that for yourself. So anyway, so the difference I see is I see more people delaying legal and medical transition. Even our own clients, like being, again, like Angela was saying, like worried about doing their documentation, saying like, let me just not have this on my insurance record. It's not changing at all how many people are trans, and it's not changing how many people are coming here and exploring their gender identity and, saying they're trans. But it is there, I think there's more hesitancy around taking some of those legal and medical steps. And then obviously there's, a lot. now even in Pennsylvania, even though we're a relatively safe state for trans teens and for trans adults, kids can't get care until they're 19. They can't have surgery, like top surgery until they're 19. Whereas before they could get top surgery at
Got
17,
it.
18, now they can't get it till 19. Um, they can't start medical transition until 19. And so there's been a lot of changes that I think have impacted even who's coming in to get
Yeah,
support, right? Like if I'm sitting here and I'm a trans woman and I know I'm not going to like make any outward steps towards transition because I'm afraid, then I'm less likely to come into Arrive Therapy, right? Like, because I'm just going
that
to
makes sense.
sit here and be sort of quiet, which is adaptive. It makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's interesting and sad that
yeah,
yeah.
what I want to say about our clients that we have, I have, even though there are some people delaying medical transition and legal transition, I have not seen anybody say I'm not trans. I have not seen in the face of all the adversity. In fact, I've seen more people say, I know this for sure. In the face of people telling me I can't do this, in the face of people saying I can't have surgery, there's a whole other group of our clients that are like, no, I'm going to go have a surgery that maybe I was putting off because I just didn't get around to it, or maybe my dysphoria wasn't that bad, or I hate doctors and I'm really scared of hospitals. And then some of them say, no, no, I'm doing this now before this is taken away from me. So there's a little bit of like, I feel like two camps. Some people who are really like, no, no, I got to do this now, and other people who feel like reticent, but none of them are saying, "Oh, this oppression makes me feel like I'm not trans." So,
Well,
I mean, it's just
I feel
interesting.
like inside this group, I think that's not a surprise to
That's
hear.
not a surprise in this group, yeah.
Like maybe other people might be, but yeah, I was like, of
Well,
course.
like I mean, I know you say that, like, and I mean, I agree with that, but there was part of me that thought that there were people who would kind of turn tail in that way and sort
Oh,
of
that's
say,
interesting.
like, right, with enough opposition, kind of say, I'm going to deny this within myself. I'm going to like shut this out in myself.
Yeah,
Right. So that's the piece when I say nobody is like saying they're not trans. But I
yeah.
think sometimes it can be so scary that people just like shut it down.
That's really amazing then to see that that's not what's happening with your people.
Yeah, it's with our people, and I feel like that could be because they have enough support, and I would imagine there are people that's happening with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna change tracks just a little bit because I know
Okay.
you had some recent experience with your passport and
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
gender marker stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So what I experienced was that I turned my passport in for renewal there was this brief period of time where there was like the State Department was not honoring, or there was a stay on whatever you call it. I don't know the legal language to the like executive order about gender markers on passports. And so I knew mine was coming up for renewal and I sent mine in. And there was no planned time for the Supreme Court to have arguments on that. So I thought I had a little bit of time. And anyway, so I got my passport back. And so I sent mine in like I want to say like 3 or 4 days before they made the ruling that they were going to go with Trump's executive order and that gender markers would be switched back to your gender assigned at birth. So I think what I want to talk about is like the impact that had on me. And I feel like, well, two things. One is I remember the day when I got my driver's license and it had like my name and my correct gender marker on it. And it was one of the best days of my life. Like it just felt so amazing. And so I feel pretty strong and pretty confident in who I am. I don't walk around feeling like I care about what people think about me. But when when I got that back, it did feel like a pretty significant blow. And it's hard to exactly explain what that felt like, but it felt very dehumanizing and it felt very much like etching away at like there were even times where then I would joke around with my partner, like, well, maybe we're lesbians now. Like, it just felt like it ate away at my own like sense of self. And then sometimes, I was at getting my blood drawn, and sometimes medical professionals will want to know your sex assigned at birth for different reasons. Like it maybe it matters with your
Yeah.
labs and stuff like that. And they asked me like, well, legally, what is your like legal gender? And for a second, I was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't say that. I said male, but like, you know what I mean? It just kind of like
Yeah.
has impacted me. It's impacted things like feeling like I could travel safely internationally, feeling like I've got like what's it called? Like where you can get through security really quickly.
Oh, like
Um,
pre-check
TSA
type thing
pre-check.
for,
But now like
global
my
entry.
yeah, like my pre-check and global entry now don't match my passport. So like I don't really know what to do about that. There's just like it just felt like it has,
Yeah,
now if I try to fly internationally and you have to put female on my pass or my ticket, it just feels like it's impacting a lot of things that I didn't really think it would impact. But really it's had also an emotional impact on me. So I think that's hard. And for people like, coming in to see Angela saying, I really want to change my gender marker and my name and not being able to do that because of safety, right? Like I'm somebody who has lived with this for 7 years, let's say, having all my gender markers correct on my IDs. But if I was like brand new to transitioning, I can imagine like the emotional and psychological impact it would have on me to never be able to make those changes or feel like I'm never going to be able to make those changes like legally. It would just like really, I could see it impacting my sense of self.
that
You
makes
know?
sense.
Yeah. So I
That's
think it's
tough.
tough. I think it's tough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Can you also talk a little bit about, I know you did some estate planning with Angela. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about your experience with that?
I mean, I had a great experience with Angela. It was fun. She made it fun. She made it very personalized. She really goes into detail, and I've had estate planning done 2 or 3 times before. And she really goes into detail about like what do you need to protect yourself? What if this kind of thing happens? Like, just to make sure that in ways other people hadn't, I felt like she really went into detail and made it very personalized to me. So I had a really great experience. I feel really good about the documents that we put together. Um, and also she's fun. She's like a
Right.
hoot. She's a hoot. So, no, it's really good. I felt really well represented. She's also done some other work for me, setting up like a trust for real estate and stuff that, again, when I had done estate planning with other people, I just feel like it wasn't as thorough and it wasn't as complete. And it certainly didn't have the aspect of like LGBTQ related stuff, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, we had our estate planning stuff done years ago. My dad passed in 2021, and he's still right now like the second person after my wife on all the things. So it's like, all right, we need to get stuff updated. But yeah, you're right, because it's nothing to do with like all the other, it's why there's like the 9 documents instead of the typical 4.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. Okay. And then has Angela also helped you with stuff around adoption?
Yes, so we're in the process. I've got 2 adopted kids, and my fiance is in the process of adopting our younger son. So Angela's helping us with that. And we haven't gone through, adoption is so you do the home study, you go to court. We haven't done the court proceeding yet because we're just getting our home study back, but she's going to go to court with us and do that
Oh,
with us.
nice.
Yeah.
How long does that process take?
Well, it depends on how long it takes you to get the paperwork done. I had the
Okay.
paperwork done in like a month, and it took my
Okay.
partner a year to get the paperwork done. So I was like,
Okay.
come on, are we doing this or not?
Fair.
Once you get all your paperwork done and you do the home study visit, it's like a month usually until they get the written home study. And I mean, I've had good experience so far being a trans person, having home studies done, but we also intentionally pick people like we tell people that up front and we just sort of make sure that we're working with somebody who's like doesn't doesn't care, isn't going to make
Are
that a
you
deal.
able to
Right.
choose who does the home study for you?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's cool.
Well, now if you are working with an agency to do adoption, like in our case, it's like we picked a person because we're not trying to an adopted child. We already have the
Yeah.
child at home, right? Um, but sometimes if you're working with an agency like to adopt an infant, for example, then they just do it with the person they have. But if you don't like that person and you don't feel comfortable, I would imagine you could pick another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, that's important to be able to like choose your person.
Yeah, and I mean adoption, I think adoption rules around adoption for LGBTQ people are different in every state at this point. Like
Yeah.
I sort of feel like every single state is a different country at this point.
I
Like
I mean, I'm in
whereas
Florida, so yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm sure that that is true with experiences across the board. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I feel like we talked about this a little bit, but as a therapist who your practice sees literally hundreds of trans and gender expansive folks, what are the most common things that you're hearing from clients right now?
I think just like elevated distress levels to begin with, just like people feeling really stressed, people feeling on edge. And a lot of conversation around like safety and what do I do to keep myself safe? And like, what if I need to leave the country and I can't because my passport has been revoked? And, just a lot of like worry about safety that I would say wasn't there before. Before there was some safety concerns around like if I go out as a woman and somebody sees me and I'm clocked, is there a little safety issue there? Whereas in this area, it's actually pretty safe, even for trans women, like physically safe.
Yeah,
But now there's a whole lot of kind of existential worry about like, is it just is it okay to just be a human? Is it just okay to be me in the world anymore? Just like on a really like fundamental level. So I would say that, and that impacts all the other distress levels and like the rest of the distress that you have in life, right? Like if you're going through something at work, it's like you're already there's this concept of like if you wake up with, say like a 0 to 10 distress level, right? Like you wake up and maybe you have to pee and you're hungry. So like maybe your distress is at like 1. And then you hit traffic on the way to work and you spill your coffee on yourself and you're like your distress level's at 3. And then you go to work and your boss yells at you and you're at like 6, right? And it's like, but I feel like our clients now are like coming into the day at like 5 or 6, right? Because it's just this like you know, lack of safety. And anybody who lives in a world where they don't feel safe, like, wakes up with higher distress levels. So then it's much harder to do the things you need to do, like take care of yourself and eat well and even go join a support group, like all the things that will make you feel better, or even like get a job if you need a job. It's just much harder to do those things because you're waking up like already like depleted and distressed. So I think it has like far-reaching impacts.
that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
By the way, as we're going through stuff and talking, if anybody has questions for Alexander, feel free to put them in the chat. You can also raise your hand, any any and all of the things. Um, okay, so all of your staff is also LGBTQ plus. A lot of them are trans, most of them, right? Um,
Most. Yeah.
how are you supporting your clients and holding space for them to be able to then also hold space for all of their
Right.
clients? Like, how does that? Yeah.
I mean, I think at the beginning of last year, when Trump was reelected and these executive orders first started coming out, that was, I feel like, a crisis point for the company as well. Like, can we keep doing what we're doing? Like, do we feel safe enough to keep doing what we're doing? There was a lot of fear around even like, are we safe in our office space? And, like, are we safe legally as therapists? And so far, we've been totally fine. But I think that, going back, even I remember COVID, when COVID happened and everybody was shut down, everybody was locked in their homes. It was the first time in my career that I really felt like me and my client are going through the exact same thing right now.
Mm,
And it felt like there was some solidarity there that was supportive really to both, right? Like I'm still in the role of the therapist, but it I could see that was beneficial to clients, that we were just like all humans in that moment, right? And so I think that is part of being an LGBTQ person and having, as particularly a trans person, having a trans or gender diverse therapist, where you're really going through this lived experience together. And like you can you don't have to, like, there have been times that I've thought in the last year, like, well, maybe it'd be good for me to have a therapist, like there's a whole lot of stuff happening. And what I've gotten stuck on has been I don't want to walk into my therapy office and have to explain to my therapist like everything that's happening in the whole world, right? And like that's the kind of thing that a person doesn't have to do. They can come in and they can say, "Hey, this thing, did you hear about this thing? Oh yeah, I know what's happening." Or you just start talking about what it's like to live right now or what it's like to like a client will come in and say like, "Okay, tell me what you think about real IDs." And I have something to offer. They don't have to go, "Okay, let me tell you all the things that are happening," blah, 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 and then just know that the therapist is going to have nothing. I have no idea, right?
Right.
So even though I don't have all the answers, things are like Angela's saying, like things are moving so fast that even somebody who that this is their job to know this stuff is not always going to have the answer because it's just moving so fast. Um, so I think that it's both been challenging for the therapist to be experiencing some of the same distress as clients
Yeah.
because you're experiencing it and you're holding space for it with other people. But on two levels, one, I think it's really good for clients that we are in some ways going through the same thing. And two, um, like if I'm taking care of myself and I can keep, like I feel like it's been really profound for clients who've come in and they'll ask me questions about like, well, how are you dealing with this? And if I'm taking care
Mm,
of myself and I'm keeping my head in a good place, it's like, oh, you can do that too, right? Like I don't have to let what's happening like kill me inside. It may impact outside. It may impact my like, TSA pre-check and it may impact my passport and it may impact things, but it doesn't have to kill me here. And that's really the what I can work on with clients as a therapist, but it's not going to come out as like really minimizing, right? Like, oh, if so say if I'm a, cis straight therapist, right? And I say like, oh, just work on your mind, like,
right.
the client is going to be like, you don't know, like you have no idea what I'm dealing with. But I'm like, no, I do know I'm living in the same world and I have to work on my mind and my heart. That's the only thing I can work on, right?
Yeah.
Other than I can do advocacy work and I can like, do other things. But like in here, this is where I can really make change.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. We have a question in the chat
Yeah.
about so I have many friends that are in the process of transitioning. Do you have recommendations in order to support them as they continue to progress in their transition?
I mean, the thing that comes to mind is just like really love them and love them hard. Um, and you can do things like offer to go places with them. Like if they're scared to go to, an event that's got trans people, if they're scared to do things, like say they need to go, to court for their name change, like offer to go with them. Just offer to be more of like an active support than just sort of saying, "Yay, I support you," It can be things like, they're maybe they went home and they had a bad experience. And so like invite them over afterwards and say, come over to my house. Like, or it's a holiday, come to my house for the holidays. Don't like just be a little bit more active, I think, in thinking of like what they might need. But at the end of the day, just like love them hard. And I think that really makes a big difference. Yeah.
Nice. For people in the community who are feeling frozen or going underground or just trying to white knuckle through it, what would you want them to hear from you as a clinician?
That it's okay to cope however they're coping. Like, there's not one way to respond to this, right? Like, I'm somebody who's kind of out here and I'm not going to be quiet and I'm not going to go away, but it's okay to go inside. It's okay to like protect yourself and become quiet. But the other piece of that is that you don't have to be like frozen. So finding ways to thrive. And I think that's something my partner and I have been working on is like, how do we find joy when things feel really dark, right? And like, you can find joy even when the bigger, right? And one of the ways we did that is we got a dog, we got a puppy, especially for our 4-year-old, right? And it's like caused all kinds of chaos, but it's also brought a whole lot of joy. And so finding like leaning into art, leaning into communities, and those are the things that will help you unfreeze, right? Is like it's not going to change the circumstances around you. But also just knowing that it's normal to to freeze. It's like a fight, flight, or freeze response. And we're in a situation that is genuinely threatening. It's not like abstractly threatening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I would say. Just like again, like love yourself. Try to find places like go hiking and do things that are like just genuinely like gentle for you and for your nervous system. And then like find a therapist. If you can find a therapist, like there's so much about having a therapist that I really think helps us get unfreeze, helps us really stay connected to ourselves.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that.
Anyone else have any questions as I'm talking? Like anything? I'll pretty much answer almost anything, unless I don't know or I don't want to, but I'm pretty open.
Um, so as Angela's on the Caravan of Hope, what gives you hope right now?
What gives me hope is, I came out in 1997 as a lesbian in Eastern Tennessee. And I remember back then, it was like before any kind of marriage equality. And in Eastern Tennessee, it was not a safe place to be a gay person, of any kind of LGBTQ person. And I remember like essentially it feels like when I remember back, like huddling in small places together, right? It'd be like, oh, the only place you can go and be gay is like over here, right? And
Hmm.
I saw this huge evolution for the gay community that is still here. It's still relatively accepted, even in southern states, to be, or more conservative states, to be gay. That's much more accepted. And so, what I saw before the acceptance was a huge backlash. And so, I do think that we're in this is a little bit different because what's happening with our government is so fundamentally different. So I don't think there's like direct parallels, but the social parallels of like there being a really big backlash once there is exposure. And so that's partly what I see happening is like the last 5 years or so, there's just been a ton of exposure and a ton of progress, and there's a certain amount of backlash. But what gives me hope is a couple things. One, having seen that, and really, I'm not going to stop believing it's going to get better, right? It might not, I don't know, but I'm not going to stop believing it's going to. Um, and second of all, is the younger generations are coming for the old folks. They're coming and they don't care, right? There may be pockets of young folks who do care, but for the most part, an example would be I have a 14-year-old who is the most masculine, most typically straight cis boy you can imagine, right? And his friends are. And his friends don't know I'm trans. I'm positive he's not like told his friends that I'm trans. But anyway, like I listen to them. I'll be driving them places in the car and they're like, "Oh yeah." And a lot of them have conservative parents. Some of all my son's got friends of all different ethnicities. So with all kinds of different backgrounds, really conservative backgrounds. And like they'll be in the car and they'll mention, oh yeah, and this like, TikToker, oh, it's trans, blah, blah, blah. And they just keep going. Like they do not care. It's really not a focus for them. They are not really that concerned or interested. Things like there'll be somebody in their school that's trans or somebody is gay, and they'll just be like, oh yeah, that kid's trans. And they just move along. They just
Yeah.
not concerned about it. They're not thrown off by it. They understand. And even the kids, like my son obviously has a unique like experience of understanding it, but all the other kids don't. And they seem like
Yeah.
not bothered.
You know,
So that makes me hopeful.
I love that. I hear the same thing. I have like from kids, friends that we have with kids that are teenagers, so many of them, it's just like a whole groups of like queer kids that are like the whole spectrum of, like trans and non-binary and like, and it's all just like, yeah, they just get it and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I've not heard one of these young boys like make fun of a trans or gay person in their school. And again, like I said, like many of them have got Trump supporting parents. They're from immigrant homes with really conservative, like immigrant parents who come from different cultures and they just like don't care. And like, for example, there's a kid that's sort of peripherally in their group that's gay. And I asked my son, like, does anybody care that he's gay? I've not heard anybody say anything. He's like, no, like nobody cares. Like, and he's like 13 and out, right? Like that's like the perfect age to be really bullied for being gay, and nobody seems to care.
I
So
bet that's with boys. Like most of the kids that I know, it's like it's going on with like groups of girls, but like a whole group of boys, like
It surprised me too. I'm not
That's
gonna,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that makes me hopeful. And also I just choose to be hopeful. Like there are days when I it's harder to choose to be hopeful. Um, and I just sort of like say that's my choice. Like I don't know the future. So I don't know if it will get better and I don't know if it will get worse. But I can sit here and live in the it's never going to get better. And that feels way worse than believing it will get better. So like that's just my choice, you know. But I'm not denying the reality of what's happening, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. All right. We got a question in the chat from Jenny. The current administration is like a train, just full steam ahead, targeting our community in general. I want to be optimistic, though any objective they have seems to become a reality. Politically, where do you see our greatest opportunity to slow this train down?
That's a really good question. Um, what I believe truly happened with the gay community and how gay people, you know, gained acceptance was through exposure. Like I always say, you can't change people's hearts and minds like with information. It's like relationships. It's like when I knew things were changing as we went through like the early 2000s. I knew things were changing when every time I would come out or somebody knew I had like at the time I was living as a female, so I'd have a female partner and they would go, "Oh yeah, this other person I know is gay and this other person I know is gay." And I knew things were changing. At the time I was living in the South, like where it was really conservative. And so I think there's a lot of great things. I think like social media, like being loud on social media about your beliefs and really making noise. I think going to all this like activist kind of stuff is important. But for me personally, I think it's like exposure and like if you are like a cis straight person and you hear somebody around you saying something that's unkind, you are the best person to stand up for like trans and gay people because they're not going to go like, oh yeah, because he's gay, like he said that kind of thing, right? It's like you really are actually a voice that they will probably listen to more. But for me, like even when I identified as a lesbian, I was living in the South. I was never gonna like not be out. I was like, people need to know gay people. They need to know gay people and they need to know trans people. And when I hear a person say, "Oh, I know a trans person," they almost always are like, "Yeah, it's cool. It's fine." Like they're just like another person. And so like I really think we just I see it online too, where when I see in the comments like there'll be like just tons of anti-trans comments, and I see that it's like the the people who are supportive of trans folks don't jump in, right? Because I think it's like it feels like there's just this mass of people like that are like everybody, and so I think we have a tendency to go, oh, I don't want to say anything in that group, like, or in those comments, right? And so just taking risks and saying, oh, yeah, you know what? I actually do know somebody who's trans, and here's why they're awesome, or, just like trying to like slowly change people's hearts and minds is what I think personally. But, I'm a therapist, so.
It's funny, my wife and I will joke that she's like a gateway gay because she's really good. Like people like her and she
Mm.
is good at talking to people and she can have like debates that are like reasonable and rational. And I just get like, I don't want to talk about politics with people that I disagree with. But there are people that like her showing up as a queer person in their life, like she's like a good example of like changing somebody's mind around queer people. And so
Right.
I think yeah, that like,
Right.
yeah,
And you don't, I mean, this is just my strong opinion. You don't change people with anger, right? And like that's one of the things I love doing with parents when they come in and they work with me and they'll say, like, well, I don't want to say something because I'm going to offend you. And I'm going to say, you can't offend me, right? Because whatever they believe is not about me. I'm like, you can't offend me. Here's where I want you to say everything that you really think and believe. And I really like I have to win them with acceptance. I have to win them first with accepting them for what they believe and who they are. And that's the only way. Like I can't go in with like, oh no, you need to support your kid. It's like I really have to embrace them at first with like where they are. Does that make sense?
it does. I was just thinking about that's like, I would imagine, like, as a trans person, hearing this person say like negative beliefs about trans people, though, like, has got to be just tough. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. I just like truly believe it's not about me.
which
And
makes sense.
so it really doesn't bother me that much. I just kind of go, oh yeah, I'm really grateful this person is in here because I get a chance with them. Like if they're in here and they're talking to me, I get a chance. And so that's how I see it, you know. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing if you've got an aunt or an uncle or somebody that's like really a friend who's transphobic or, homophobic, if they'll keep talking with you and sharing with you and you can embrace them initially and like with the same respect that you want them to give you, you've got a chance. If you don't start there, you got nothing.
Yeah. That's a really amazing way to see it, and I love that. And I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Um, yeah.
Got
Maybe
more questions?
yeah. Do you fear your family may be separated with the current administration speaking out that there should be only marriage between one man and one woman? My husband and I are fearful about this possibility happening.
It's not something I've thought about it. What we've had to make the decision of is like we really wanted to leave the country and we're like making like serious plans to do that. Like I wasn't going to close Arrive Therapy. We were just going to run it from today.
Mm,
But I share 50% custody of my older son with my ex-wife, and she's not willing to let me take him. So that's the fear that I have around separation is that if I really had to leave, then I have to leave my kid behind. And so that's the main reason that we're not leaving. That's like the only reason we're not leaving. So I fear in that way. I really hadn't gone deeper, like thought more about the other possibilities. So no, but I think it's a valid thing to think about, and be concerned about.
mm.
Yeah.
Have you encountered other queer people being unaccepting in the community?
What do you mean? Like of trans people?
I think that it's a question from the chat. I think that is what they meant.
I haven't personally, but I do know that that exists. I feel like it's more in the past than now. Um, but I haven't personally experienced it, but I know other people have.
Hmm. Um, doo-doo. My wife and I, this is from the chat. My wife and I have been married 39 years. They may be able to take some benefits away, but they can't take us away from each other.
It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. I mean, gay families and gay marriages existed before there was legal gay marriage or marriage equality. And so it's like that's what I think too about like when the passport thing happened, like what I really had to say to myself is like it doesn't matter what they say about me. They actually cannot change who I am. Like they could literally make me dress and be look like a woman and they still can't change who I am. There just is no changing it. So like yeah, they can't change our families. They can't change our love. They can't change our sexual orientation. So like it's a zero-sum game for them. They're like they're dead before they even started. Like it's just like a loss.
Yeah.
Um and in the end, right? They can't do what they really want to do, which is erase people and race identities.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. Right. And like Jimmy was saying, there are other ways to create some of those legal protections.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you
Which
could do
goes
like
back
things
to,
that it goes back to Angela. Like Angela's got a
uh-huh.
lot of ideas on that, like how to do trusts and how to have legal documentation for your she does this, I don't forget what it's called, but like a legal thing that you can take into the hospital with you so that
It's the HVA, it's the hospital
yeah,
visitation
visitation.
authorization,
Yeah.
which people can buy just that from
Yeah.
her, or they can get all of the things, which I'm gonna pop a little link
And
in.
what's cool that she does that I wasn't expecting was she sends you away with a little like laminated card that has all that information in it. So you can put that in your wallet, you can put it, store it somewhere in your car, like wherever you might think you would need it. Like if you if you were in an emergency kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I just popped the link in so that if you want to schedule a consult with Angela, for working one-on-one with the Giampolo Law Group for estate planning, that's a possibility for you. They also have Pride plans, which is a little bit less expensive, um, which is great. And Alexander, will you talk a
Yes,
little bit
ma'am.
about, yeah, exactly that. I saw you just put your
Yeah,
link.
yeah. Before we're out of
Um,
time. Yeah.
yeah, if someone is looking for a gender affirming therapist, how can they find you and Arrive Therapy? Obviously, arrivetherapy.com.
Yeah, you
But
can go to arrivetherapy.com. We will do a free consultation with you if you want to. If you don't want to, and you may want to make it really simple, you can just go on and you can book with a therapist and get started. There's really great descriptions on their pages, the therapist pages. A lot of them have videos. You can see a video of them talking. You can kind of get to know them a little bit before you book. Um, or you can just send in a contact form and we'll get back with you and answer any questions that you have and do it's typically like 30 minutes on the phone with me. So I will really sit and go like, what do you need in a therapist? What are you looking for? How can we make sure we get you the right care?
nice.
Yeah.
And you said that you're expanding to other states
Other
as well.
states. Yeah, yeah. So we're going to start hiring in other states. Particularly, I want to hire in red states. I want to kind of like go in there and like, as
So
much as we
needed.
can, and be available to people. Now we do it now, but we do it as like we call it gender coaching. It's the same thing that we do, but we do it
Huh,
as gender coaching because we can't technically until we get a licensed person in that state, we can't
yeah.
do mental health counseling. So we will do like sort of like gender coaching, which is
Nice.
really the same. Um, but
Gotcha. I love that. Really the same.
but but I want to have a bigger presence in those states, and so I
Yeah.
want to start. We're going to start hiring in those states. So
I love
anyway,
that.
so reach out and please like share our information with anybody who might benefit from us, a family member of an LGBTQ person, parents, like really like anyone. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you
Yep.
so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us during Legal Queer and A. Thanks, y'all. And so yeah, check out Alexander, arrivetherapy.com. And so next time it will be back to Angela. She'll be at a stop on the Caravan of Hope that is not a like work day. So yeah.
Right.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.